where people can have access to them. We do have some forms, which I'll send out, the acknowledgement form, and it also is a release of indemnity for both the district and paint care. If whatever's in that paint can turns out not to be paint when you bring it home and it eats your house or your dog or whatever it does. Um, and basically report that back to us in gallons given away, and we'll pay you for them.
Yeah. So we can give it away or we can charge. We'll still get the $5 a gallon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'd be
Generally,
interested.
if you're reprocessing it, like packaging whites into a 5-gallon pail or whatever, then that would be, and then selling it for whatever, that we'll still do reuse on that.
Okay. When can this happen, I guess?
Soon as possible. I've got to double check your contract, but I think you've got reuse in your contract now, so it could, you could
Awesome.
report reuse numbers for the first quarter anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Welcome. I think Mary, you were next.
Hi, John. So when you mentioned infrastructure, what is that?
Well, in this case, it would be most likely like shelving or a locker, that kind of thing that you could be set up as a reuse locker. Some way to actually, so I know your facility is basically some storage containers and a slab. So something to make it so that people can access the paint without having to go into your buildings or into places where you don't want them, or digging through the boxes, because that's also, we don't want people digging through the boxes.
Okay, so if I'm interested in that, I'd just contact you.
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah. So what's the level of, complexity that the organizations that we donate to need to have? Do they, I need to have a 501c3 or whatever to pick it up? What's how do we keep track, and what are the receipts you kind of need? And then
The receipts basically, so best practice would be to use our form, to indemnify both both paint care and the district. And then basically here, I'm going to share my screen quickly. On our website, you guys see that? There's basically an invoice form, and you put in the gallons, and these are the old pricing. This pricing would be going up to make it more worthwhile. And electronically sign it, send it to us, and we'll probably have it back to you within a couple of weeks. And in terms of like who you can give paint to, it's basically anybody. A local painter, if they want 50 gallons of off-whites to do some primer or whatever, that's fine. That school district, anybody. Mary?
And can we advertise this?
Yes. Yep. We're also working on, and again, we're going to have a meeting this evening to talk, or this afternoon to talk about it some more, a system through our website. It's kind of like the large volume pickup system, where if somebody wants a lot of paint, like say a theater troupe or Habitat for Humanity, something like that, they can put in a form, and then if people have paint, they could go like basically access who needs paint and who has paint, and we'll try to connect people together that way, so we can do direct without having to come through either the district or paint care or Clean Harbors, but it can go direct from source to people who need it.
That would be really great. I could see that being really helpful, to have that option.
Yeah, kind of like getting back to the old Vermont Business Materials Exchange model with paint. Josh.
I support as much reuse as possible. Obviously, I just, as a word of caution for a group that, as a group that did give away paint for a long time, it will come back to you. And so I really support the local painter model, rather than necessarily just the general public model, because as you all know, the general public loves to pick up free stuff, which also would lend me to recommend some charge for the paint, just to you know push back against anybody that's looking to just pick up anything for free, because it will, like, we're still getting back paint that we gave away in our reuse zone. I think the last time it was open was 15 years ago. And so I very much support this. Obviously, we want reuse as much as possible. I think there are a couple of ways to do it so that you're not seeing this paint again and it's actually going to someone that's going to use it. So just putting that warning out there, and happy to, give any context that people are looking for. But I think it's great. I think it's great that Paint Care is increasing the reimbursement for it and incentivizing it. I just making sure that it's done the right way, just so to save the headache from handling it more than once.
Yeah, I know you had trouble with people who are hoarding, especially hoarding hazardous waste is not an ideal situation. It's really about all I've got. I'm working on our annual reports. We've got numbers from 2024. If people want their numbers or their local numbers, we're pulling that all out to put into our annual reports. A reminder that now the annual report does have a list of every drop-off site in the state with the gallons that they picked up in 2024. And that won't be out until early May, but we do have those numbers if you need them. Mark, did you have something?
I could have got this offline, but if we're gonna be processing the paint, is there a limit where the paint turns bad? How can you tell the paint's obviously bad?
I think it's pretty obvious. Josh probably has a better idea than I do, but if you pop a
Yeah.
can open and it's cottage cheese and smells horrible, then
Yeah,
that's probably not a good one.
yeah,
But
that's what I thought.
yeah, the newer paints are more fragile than older paints. They don't like freeze and thaw, but they still can take a couple of cycles before they're completely ruined.
Yeah,
So there's still a lot of good reusable paint out there.
awesome. Thanks.
I will say that there's a distinct sound if you wrap on the bottom of a can with a screwdriver. There's a very distinct sound that good paint makes versus bad paint. And Mia mentioned our training at the top of the hour. I think if all of you are planning on being there, or if as many of you can come as possible, I will just put out there that Bob Holman is one of the most foremost experts on determining whether paint is good before he opens a can. And to save everybody the effort from opening cans, I'm sure he'd be happy to set some really good examples aside, and so we can go through that during the training. But just if you found a couple cans that made different sounds when you hit the bottom of them and you open them up and see, yeah, John is right. Once you open a can, if it's bad or not, because it's either completely separated and there's water on the top and all the solids have settled to the bottom, or it's actually gone rancid. So those are the two times where it's bad. And then other than that, if it's still mixable and good paint, it'll smell fine. And they will make two very distinct sounds. So
Thank
Oh,
you.
that's interesting. I want to see that one as well, but I can see if you've got a can full of Jello, it's going to sound different than a can full of liquid.
yeah, it's almost like a deadened sound when the paint is still good, because it's still mixed up, and it's not two separate materials within the can.
Great, that's helpful. Should have mentioned it earlier. We are recording this meeting. Some folks asked us to do that, so just letting you all know. And just for the sake of the recording, the reimbursement, John, what's the amount again?
We don't have the exact amount nailed down.
Okay.
The old amount was about, oh, here, I don't need to share my screen anymore. Sorry. Was about was like $1.60 a gallon. We're going to about triple that to around $5 a gallon.
Okay, great.
Because it costs us $10+ a gallon for every gallon that's shipped and processed and trucked halfway across the country. So it's still it costs less to reuse than it does to
Reuse it.
recycle it.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you all. Feel free to reach out. Any questions, thoughts, and I'll see you all in a couple weeks. I'm gonna come up to
Yep.
Chittenden.
Very good. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. And battery folks, I didn't put you on the agenda because we talked batteries last week, but I see that Matt and Roxanne are here. I think most of you were on our battery meeting, but if Matt and Roxanne, if you want to just, I'm not seeing you, but turn on your cameras and give a wave. That would be great.
Mia, just super quickly, we have a new
Sure.
terminal protect. We have a new
You can
updated
talk.
terminal
It doesn't have to be
terminal
quick.
protection sheet. It's a lot easier to read. So do you want me to send it to you so you can mass blast it out to everybody else?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, or you could send it directly. Either way is fine.
Okay.
And that is exciting news.
Yeah.
That new and improved.
It's
Excellent.
really nice. It's really nice. Can button
All right.
batteries go in the parfait? I saw that question. Yes. Yes, they
And
can.
for anyone who's not familiar with the parfait,
For anyone who is not familiar with the parfait, we have a solution that we call One Drum, which is basically it's a drum that you get with some flame resistant material where you can put in like 5 gallons of batteries in, and then you put the flame the fire
cell block.
repressant, the cell block.
Most folks here know that material now.
Yeah, the cell block, and then another 5 gallons of batteries, and then another layer of cell block. And you do not need to terminally protect in this solution. And you can fill it up to like 500 pounds is the max weight for the one drum. So and it also has, so at the point in time when you start collecting the medium format batteries, you can also put batteries that are over 300 watt hours in this. They can be part of the parfait. And I see, yeah. And Matt said, dump them right in, no tape needed. So I kind of like that. Dump them in.
Thank you. And Call to Recycle will be connecting with all of you in May, I believe was an estimated time frame, reaching out and kind of seeing what the needs are for each region as we get closer to rolling out the new battery program.
Absolutely. We're going to start reaching out in May. We're working on the plan now to be able to, so that we'll submit the plan June 1st. And in May, we will start reaching out to see what kind of containers you're going to need. So, so just think about like how many damaged defective batteries you get so that, we can talk about what solutions you need and how many, like, if it's, if you get them in onesie twosies and you need the container that just sends back one damaged battery, then, how many of those do you need on hand to be able to, to take care of what you get in while you're waiting for more products. So, so just be thinking about that. We will start reaching out in May, and we'll be delivering those to get ready for the January 1 implementation. We'll be delivering all of the all of the products in December.
Awesome. Thank you, Roxanne. And just to follow up from the battery meeting last week, we had some discussion about storage of batteries, and I just wanted to clarify, when you're collecting batteries, and we were discussing some of the new products that Call to Recycle had, and like the One Drum and transfer stations and where they would be collecting batteries. And batteries need to be stored on an impervious surface under cover. It doesn't necessarily have to be indoors, but it has to be under cover where the elements are not going to get to it, so that rain or snow can't be flying in there and hitting the side of the drum or the box of the batteries. So I just wanted to follow up with that. It's, similar to your e-cycle storage. So if there's any other questions about that, let me know. Just wanted to close that circuit. Okay, bad joke.
So I have a question in relation
Yes.
to the high watt batteries. Unfortunately, I did not attend last week's.
Sure.
But so I have a customer who has RVs and boats, and they have about 100 high volt batteries, the high watt hour lithium batteries. And they don't like fit in the regular boxes. And I haven't taken them yet. I've tried to, defer him to Life Cycle in Rochester. But he's, I don't know, for whatever reason, he's reluctant to do so. Probably because it's going to cost him money.
Because it's going to cost.
Yeah.
So when the program is up and
Do you
running,
take
which
them?
it's not yet, we're
Okay.
getting closer. So the plan is due June 1st. That's what Call to Recycle is working on right now. And then our agency needs to approve that and approve any other plans that are coming in. And then once the program's up and running, about in January, those types of batteries would, as long as they're below 2,000 watts, they would be covered under the program. So the cost to recycle them will be paid for by the battery producers. But as of right now, if you worked with Call to Recycle, there would be a fee for recycling those batteries because they're not covered yet. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we'll get a hold of Call to Recycle separately to see what that fee would be.
Great.
Thank you.
You bet. Alexandra, sorry.
Alex is good. Hey, everyone. Does the One Drum also include embedded batteries or just the loosey-gooseys? So like electric toothbrushes, or even what are the Omnipods?
Embedded batteries, unfortunately, are not covered under the battery stewardship program, even with the expanded law. The language is really specific that the producers that are paying into it are the producers of products with removable batteries, and that means that easily removable with a tool that you have at home. So anything embedded isn't going to be covered under the program. You could talk with Call to Recycle and other vendors about, separate options. I know you all at Central Vermont have some folks you're working with already on embedded, but they would not be covered the cost to recycle them under the program. Not there yet.
Thank you.
You bet. Suzanne, hi.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
My question is relate to the one about the business. So is the recycling law for businesses, if they're less than 10 employees, they can participate in the Call to Recycle? And fluorescent bulbs, etc.
Yeah, so the battery law doesn't specify like e-cycles, the 10 employees or less or anything like that. So basically those batteries, if they came through the system, they came to Northwest District, they would be covered once the program's up and running and get shipped. So it really doesn't spell out if it's coming from a business or a resident in the battery law.
So is it just electronics? Where
electronics spells that out, and then with your lamps, you have the 10 or fewer, right?
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
I think Josh, you had a question.
Well, first I realized I don't know either Dale or Matt from Northwest, so I just wanted to see if they could introduce themselves. Maybe everybody else knows them, but I don't think I've met either one of them.
Okay,
Josh,
I'm
and also JC is on here too, and I'm not sure if you all know JC.
I'm Dale Chapman. I'm the facility operations manager for Northwest Solid Waste. So I cover all 6 of our locations and manage daily operations, including HHW and all the other plastics and other programs that we do.
I'm Matt O'Brien, HHW specialist here at Northwest Solid. I took over the department roughly 3 months ago, building my experience, as I go, learning, every day, every week. So definitely eager to learn more. We have a new facility being built currently with our expansion, so I'll have a state-of-the-art facility here to process chemicals. So I'm excited.
It's nice to meet you both. I'm the director of operations with CSWD, so I'll just throw it out there for both of you that I've thrown out to everybody else. If there's any interest in coming down and working with our guys for a day or a couple days and shadowing us when we're doing our when we have our facility open, we're more than happy to have you down to pick our brain, see what we're doing. So just throwing that out
Awesome.
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to on the note about the business that has all those batteries, just the other option that we've used in the past, we use them for our fluorescent bulbs because we get so many of them, is Complete Recycling Solutions out of Fall River, Mass. They've recycled some high watt hour lithium batteries for us, and they're up here fairly frequently. And so I don't know what the rate is for larger batteries through Call to Recycle, but it's worth reaching out and seeing what the current rate is through Call to Recycle. That they're not cheap because they're lithium batteries, obviously, but like Mia said, the program isn't up and running for those high watt hour, and those might even be higher than the 2,000 watt hour batteries, depending on how big they are. I think the ones that we got were out of a RV, and they had them wired in series and for a sort of battery backup for a solar installation. And I think each individual one was higher than 2,000 watt hours. So you might not even find that you can get rid of them through the program when that comes down the line. So just another outlet potentially is that called Complete Recycling Solutions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The internet is working. Transfer it over.
JC, did you want to say hi?
Yeah, to introduce myself. I'm JC Myers. I'm the new operations manager for the ARC in Barrie. I'm an assistant general manager at Central Vermont Solid Waste Management District. Started about a little under 4 months ago. And Josh, we're gonna actually we're scheduled to come up and visit you on April 3rd. I've been to your facility once before. It's real helpful. Look forward to talking to you.
Absolutely.
Suzanne?
Just one more follow-up for Roxanne in regards to delivery in December. Are you going to only deliver to the solid waste districts or to the satellite transfer stations in regards to the drums and other materials?
You're muted, Roxanne.
Sorry. That's really going to be up to you. So we would work with you, and if you have those under your purview and you need supplies for those, then we would ship those as well.
So if you're provided with a list and the locations and addresses, then it would be shipped to those locations.
Yes.
Super. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, and if folks obviously have any questions about battery specifications, let me know, or Roxanne or Matt, anything you're looking at and whether or not it's under or over 2,000 watts. And Roxanne just put a video in for us all to enjoy, it looks like.
I did. It's really quick. It's under a minute, and it basically shows you how One Drum works.
Very good, thank you.
And can I just say one thing about One Drum, which is that it has revolutionized.
You got real quiet, Josh. I'm not sure if it's just my computer, but it's hard to hear you. There we go.
One Drum, we've been using One Drum for a couple months now, a little over 2 months. We've shipped probably, I don't know, 15 full drums already. And the drastic reduction in time spent on batteries has been amazing. And we're still shipping out of just one location because trying to manage shipping full drums from 7 different locations wasn't interesting to us. It seemed like more of a hassle than just collecting them ourselves and moving them to our environmental depot. But we've seen just a huge decrease in man hours for taping batteries. So I know it's a little bit of a different scale, but if anybody is on the fence about it, and I don't know why you would be, but I'm happy to talk to anyone about it, because it's been a real game changer, and it's really easy. If you watch the video, they make it really simple, and they've been great as far as managing a couple little hiccups that we've had, but on balance, it's been a really amazing transition.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Very good. Any other battery thoughts? I'm going out of order in the agenda, but you all don't mind, right? Vaping devices. I connected with, remember Kathy McNamara, who used to work at Clean Harbors, now at Veolia. They are able to collect vaping devices, and asked me to share that information with you all. That Veolia would be happy to work with anyone on vaping device collection. So I can share her contact information if folks were looking for that, because I believe some of you had been looking for vendors. Heritage also confirmed that they still will take vaping devices too for collection. And then I also talked to US Ecology again, and yes, they will also take vaping devices for collection. So I just wanted to give you that update, that's 3 vendors. I can't remember. I think I did try reaching out to Clean Harbors and for Debbie, maybe, and I'm not sure that I heard back. So feel free to reach out to them too, and anyone else. But I just wanted to mention that there are vendors who will collect. And yes, they will charge for it. But just wanted you to know that there are options. And Joyce, did you just raise your hand?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Did you get a price? We've already gotten questions about Green Up Day and what people are supposed to be doing with the vaping devices. Is this something that we should think about collecting and storing?
Yeah, it could be. They said it'd be best just to give you the price directly. I think it's going to be the same as what it was last time, right? It was like a couple $100 a full 5-gallon pail, if I remember correctly. But yeah, reach out to them directly and see what you get for quotes. And yeah, you could collect and store in a sealed 5-gallon pail.
But not the cannabis.
Not the cannabis. They don't
Okay.
want the cannabis. We did have a separate meeting, a few of us in our program with the Cannabis Control Board. They're aware of the cannabis vaping device issue and are trying to figure out solutions to it. They did ban the sale of disposable cannabis vape devices in Vermont. Doesn't mean there isn't any on the black market coming into Vermont, but they did make that step to ban them. So that's one positive, that the disposable cannabis vaping devices can't be sold in Vermont. And they're doing some type of a pilot program right now, exploring retail take back for cannabis vaping devices. So as soon as I learn more about that, I'll let you all know.
Is there a quick way to identify them from tobacco?
I mean, the only thing is going to be smell. I thought that they had, a little pot leaf or some kind of THC insignia, something like that, but they don't necessarily all have that. I think you just, you do your best at trying to delineate. Others might know more than me.
Yeah, I attended a meeting where they asked this question, and it was specifically a meeting about hauling cannabis device. Oh my God, cannabis vaping devices. And the issue with them is there are a few facilities that will accept them in the United States, like one being in Ohio, I believe one was in Texas, so not anywhere near here. But in order to transport them, you need to basically have law enforcement with you, and that can cost hundreds of dollars, and the law enforcement needs to travel across state line with you and like watch it be destroyed. And so it is possible. It was a state who had to do that, who was sharing their experience. I wish I could remember which one. It was in New England. But amongst that conversation, they did mention there is no way to identify what is what. They will have a different color, slightly different odor. Cannabis vaping devices tend to be more like viscous, I guess. And so, but yeah, unfortunately, there are no labeling requirements at state that, it needs to say on the device itself what it contains. Yeah.
Thanks, Shannon. That's helpful. And I was super clear to the Cannabis Control Board that the solid waste management entities have no interest in collecting cannabis vaping devices. If I misspoke, let me know and I'll go back and tell them. But that we really need another solution. Suzanne?
I was wondering, in regards to Call to Recycle and any of the recycling companies, have they approached, or has the states approached these industries like vape, or the toothbrush people who construct these devices about having so the batteries can pop out?
Suzanne, I can answer that very, very quickly.
Go ahead, Matt.
Like.
Yep.
Basically, in a very short way, it's an incredibly complicated issue. As much we've talked to the industry. The industry itself is made up of not just toothbrushes and vapes. It's toys and cell phones and anything else. A lot of it ties into right to repair. The idea of being able to basically take apart and customize your device as opposed to buying a whole new device. We do work with some vape companies that have, pop out batteries and things like that. They send us like surplus things they don't sell so they can be properly recycled. But it's a whole massive organization. It's not just going to, a couple individual companies. There's gigantic lobbying firms and things to keep embedded batteries in there. So it's a massive endeavor. We, as Call to Recycle, we're not allowed to lobby. So there hasn't been any sort of like, hey, can you please do this? There is a separate portable battery. It's the Portable Rechargeable Battery Association that is a lobby firm that we do, advise and, answer questions on. And they are the ones pretty much taking up that fight. We would love it if things were, you know, a lot easier, but things are changing due to safety, insurance rates, so on and so forth.
Matt, I also was wondering if there's any discussion in being allowed to take the batteries out. For example, now I'm starting to get smoke detectors with these 10-year batteries, and my understanding are they're lithium. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. And I'm concerned that people are throwing those out in the trash because in state of Vermont, you're still allowed to throw those detectors in the trash.
It's all part of a bigger discussion. It's definitely included. We get the smoke detectors. The issue is that we get them and there's mercury in them, and that becomes a whole different ball game. I'm not trying to take up too much of anybody else's time, but like it is something that is being, you know, hotly contested and talked about within that sphere. But it's not going to be an easy fight. It's going to be a really, really long and difficult one, and there's going to be a lot of pushback if there isn't already. Getting rid of embedded batteries, though, as we all pretty much know, please don't try to do it on your own. That's just asking for trouble. There's a higher risk of fire. There's a higher risk of explosion. There's people online who do it for fun, and I don't know why. Please don't do that. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it either.
Just want to add that it is a part of the battery stewardship law that a study needs to be done on battery embedded products. And so that requirement is in there. So it's an issue that we will be working on and looking into. And as Matt said, there's a lot of folks looking into it right now, including other states. And so we're going to coordinate our efforts and work together on a study and figure out some solutions. Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to quickly ask what I should be doing with the vapes and the embedded batteries. Should I be putting those aside for right now or shipping to Call to Recycle somehow?
Call to Recycle currently is not able to take vaping devices. They don't have a program for that. Those three other vendors I mentioned, Veolia, US Ecology / Republic, and Heritage, and then I'm not sure who you all are working with up there, Matt, but those could be options for you for vaping devices. You know, it's going to cost.
So definitely keep them aside for right now, and then try to work with. I work with US Ecology, so that could be an option. I'd have to contact them. So.
Yep, and then there's other folks for the embedded electronic products like Josh Esty had mentioned, CRS and various vendors. Yeah, so cast your net and see what, talk amongst yourselves and what you get for quotes and things like that for options. And then there was something else I just was going to mention that flew out of my head. My apologies. It'll come back to me. Oh, the House of Hazardous Waste EPR law, which I'll give you an update on in a minute, but technically nicotine vaping devices are covered under that law. We're just not there with implementation yet. But those producers will be on the hook for helping to pay for collection costs. Yeah, so that's coming down the road, just taking some time to get there. Mary?
Thanks. So, Matt, did you mention that there's mercury in smoke detectors?
I might have misspoken, and I apologize about that. Someone has already corrected me on it privately. There are certain things that we have found in smoke detectors around the country that become a different part of hazardous waste, and then we get basically dinged for it by DOT or some other regulators. I apologize for the misspeak. Yeah, there's the radioactive material. That is what I meant. I don't know why I initially jumped to mercury. I might have just been thinking thermometers and got confused with that, but that's what I meant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I found a mercury thermostat in a battery box that I was taken care of, so would not be unheard of, unfortunately. All right. Any other vape questions there or thoughts? Okay, household hazardous waste EPR law. We are working on implementing this law, and we've been working hard and we've had various meetings, many meetings with industry, trade associations, contractors who are interested in being stewardship organization for the producers. And at this point, the legislature, which most of you may, or I'm assuming you know through the District Managers Association and others, the legislature is considering an amendment to the household hazardous waste EPR law that would give another year. So currently, right now, the stewardship plan is due this July 1st, 2025 by the stewardship organization representing all of the producers obligated under the household hazardous waste law, EPR law. They want to push that date out a year. I'm just going to look at my notes so I say the right dates to you here. So that would get pushed out to July 1st, 2026 if that amendment goes through. There also is language added in there to have a November 1st, 2025. So this fall, a producer registration deadline that they register with the stewardship organization. Because right now it's not as clear. And the hope is that that producer registration deadline that they register with the stewardship organization, if they don't, then we as the state have an opportunity for compliance action at that point. Instead of having to wait until 6 months after plan approval for any sort of compliance. So that would give us another, an option for compliance to push producers to get together. The other main amendment in there would be, if this gets passed by the legislature, that is, it would add the ability for our agency to run the program if the producers do not form a stewardship organization. And it would allow ANR to establish and run it and then bill all the costs that are covered to the producers, including a 10% above total costs. So the hope is that that would be another encouragement that the producers would be able to come together under one stewardship organization. Things we're hearing right now are that, industry wants to stay in their own lanes. Trade associations form their own stewardship organizations, have multiple stewardship organizations. Some want to have multiple stewardship plans. Some are concerned about budget, that they hadn't had ample time to prepare their budget for this. Main concern about cost that I've been hearing is not necessarily the cost that is for covering your costs for disposal and collection, but more about the cost for setting up such a comprehensive program and being able to keep track of, who's selling how much into the state and who's paying what fees, who has the larger share, so that it's fair for everyone involved. That's where there's been some concern. And then all the legal costs that they have, right? So that's a very quick summary of where we are. I still feel hopeful because we have had so much engagement that we're going to get there. It's taking, longer than any of us hoped. And, the other thing is that we've heard from folks who really are interested in getting this off the ground, that they want to get it off the ground right, because they see other states interested in doing this. Illinois, Connecticut, California, are all, looking at possible legislation too. So that's a good thing. They see the writing on the wall. It's just that Vermont is the guinea pig. So, John.
Yes, I think it's reasonable to say that there's a good chance the amendment will pass, and we'll be looking at July 1st, 2026. But I'm curious as far as actual implementation, where the stewardship committee then takes responsibility for the costs associated. Are we looking at July 1st of 2027 or January 1st? Or do we have any sense of when that actual handoff on charges to the swimmies to the industry will be?
Sure. Well, as from what I can tell, I haven't seen any proposed amendments to the timeline, so it would still be the same in that, the plan is submitted July 1st, 2026. The agency has to have a 30-day public comment. We have to review it, right? So say we turn it back around within 3 months, and help me do math here, right? So that's October. And then it says 6 months after agency approval is when they have to begin the plan. So 6 months after October, then you're roughly looking at November, December, January, February, March, April to May of 2027, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet. And if this amendment goes through, we'll obviously update all the guidance and the timeline and connect with everyone on that. Yeah, and we'll be in touch about all that. I'm still waiting to hear, so. Any other questions? Great. Alexandra, do you feel like talking? Because I'm sick of talking, and we had talked via email about transport and regulations for permitting. Is there anything you wanted to share in your research there?
I will speak briefly. Yes, I'll
Yeah,
relieve
great.
you
Thank you.
briefly, Mia. Yeah, so Central Vermont has had some inquiries of transporting HHW material ourselves, specifically in the context of some of our satellite collection events. Back to our facility to save on some labor costs, and also or not labor, just the fee that we face from our third-party contractors. And so thus begun a big investigation of, can we transport this material? What are the requirements of it? And I might actually bring in Josh. He shared a lot of great resources, essentially highlighting that as municipalities, we are exempt from having a CDL and placarding our vehicle, as we are not transporting material for commerce. That was the biggest thing I learned.
Is there a weight restriction on that, Alexandra? Do you remember? Or is it any size truck, or is it up to a certain poundage? And if you don't know, don't worry about it.
Go ahead, Josh. You look ready.
As far as I know, the CDL requirements, the CDL requirements for hazmat is for the trucks under the gross vehicle rating up until when you would need a Class B CDL. So it's about needing a CDL for your hazmat endorsement. You don't need a hazmat endorsement CDL. But if you're driving a truck big enough, you still need to get your CDL.
Still need a CDL. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like our Rover truck, they make a straight truck. It's essentially the Penske size truck that is designed to be just under the threshold GVWR for needing a CDL for driving a big enough truck, as long as, again, air brakes. But the hazmat endorsement is not a requirement. And as Alex mentioned, the placarding isn't a requirement. Manifesting isn't a requirement. And so I'm happy to I think I sent the exemption language to Alex, so either one of us could forward that along if anybody's interested. But we still put our folks through an annual medical exam as if they were going to get their CDL, because I think it's prudent to do that, especially with our facility where they're bulking hazardous materials. And so I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And for a long time, we knew this exemption existed, and we still had people get their CDLs because the process to study and get your hazmat endorsement is still, in my mind, good training for the world of HHW. But having a CDL is a fairly restrictive thing on someone's license, and a pretty serious thing to have. So we did do away with that requirement. But the exemption does exist for municipal workers and for the vehicles. So there are still some requirements as far as the state of Vermont requires you to have a first aid kit and a flashlight and emergency triangles that you can put out if you're broken down on the side of the road. There's a small list of items that you have to carry in your vehicles, but all the other things are exempt from.
And you're just carrying household hazardous waste. You're not carrying any regulated hazardous waste, right?
That is the case for us.
Mhm.
Is if Drew's still on, he sent me the language yesterday, and I believe the language also, although now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I guess the question is for Drew.
Yeah, Josh. I mean, hey everybody. Drew Youngs with our hazardous materials program. The distinction lies with the generator of the waste, right? So if it's a household hazardous waste, whether it's a rover or a sort of hauler, they do not need a hazardous waste permit to transport that hazardous waste. They only need the solid waste permit. If anyone is hauling regulated hazardous waste, so non-household generated hazardous waste, then they would need the hazardous waste permit to transport it.
Yeah, and I think you would no longer be exempt from the placarding and in the manifest. I think you would have to, that you'd be subject to that if you were collecting
You'd be
business
subject to the DOT requirements.
Yeah,
Right.
I believe that's
Yeah.
the case. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be DOT and then also a haz waste transporter permit from our department. And then the other thing, and then I'll go to Mark, Josh, is that even though not required, you're probably keeping a log in your box truck of what you're carrying roughly, or no? I guess I'm asking that. We used to do that way back in the district.
We are, but it's not, as far as I know, it's not a requirement.
Not required, no.
And I will say that we still placard because we think it's, if we were in an accident, it would be nice, like, most of the local law enforcement and fire departments are trained in a little bit of DOT hazmat awareness. And so flying a placard when we have more than 1,000 pounds of flammable materials on our truck feels like the right thing to do, for the off chance that we were in an accident and we had emergency responders. So we still do some of those things just out of best practice. We still have a collection, like we're just putting together an inventory of what we collected at a particular event, and we carry that in the cab with us. So, but I that I think it's best practice, not necessarily a requirement of our license or anything like that.
Agreed. Mark, did you have something you wanted to say?
Not off the top of my head. I got
Okay.
food just a few minutes ago, so I got back in.
Got it.
I missed a couple of minutes. This is related to the permanent by DOT on rover events, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just discussing that you have a municipal exemption as long as you're only hauling household hazardous waste from your rover events back to your facility. And you only need the solid waste permit as long as it's only household hazardous waste.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we went through some licensing when the state was changing over their forms for the registration of this thing, and this was a huge thing. And at the end of the day, we realized that we weren't doing hazardous waste; we were doing household hazardous waste. But we picked up the extra insurance credential to cover if we ever have an accident above and beyond what the LCT covers. To help if there was a spill, because the LCT only covers a certain amount of materials and not hazardous waste. So we're covered on that, I think now.
Yeah, that is another thing worth considering is getting MCS 90 insurance coverage to cover it in the case that there is an accident with the release of hazardous materials, because it's definitely above and beyond what standard auto insurance will cover. So definitely worth considering. Mia, if you're still sick of talking, I can just jump into one other thing that's
Please.
related. I had a question pop up this week from our compliance department here at CSWD. They had a hauler who is essentially a junk hauler, like a 1-800 gut junk type. And they were asking, they had some concerns that the incidental ancillary hazardous materials HHW collection that they get from a house clean out, if that would mandate them get a hazardous waste hauler's permit. And so I reached out to Drew a couple days ago, and we were able to connect yesterday. And he confirmed that the sort of the status of the material remains as HHW at the point of collection through the point of disposal. So the 1-800 got junk and others can use our facility to dispose of that material. They don't have to get a hazardous waste hauler's permit. And for all of us here on the call, we can take that material as HHW and manage it through our facility as HHW and not hazardous waste. So just wanted to pass that along, as it's something that we had always operated under that way, but thanks to Drew, we were able to get the confirmation that is the case. That's how the hazardous waste program sees that the status of the material being HHW does not change, even though it's being collected by a private business. And Drew, just I think primarily it's because it's sort of ancillary to the business. They're not collecting it as hazardous waste. They're collecting it as HHW and sort of not as their primary business.
Yeah, it's really, thanks, Josh. And that was a great summary. Nothing to add other than piggybacking on that last point, that it's really just that fundamental RCRA question of like, who is the generator of waste, right? A homeowner, a household, whether someone lives there, it's abandoned, what have you, it's a household. They are calling a junk hauler because they're getting rid of waste. So it's already waste. The generator of the waste is the household, not the business that's coming to take the waste. And so that business will never become the generator, even though they are moving the household generated waste. And so any waste that is hazardous, but generated by a household, it's sort of one of the first exemptions under RCRA and under our hazardous waste regulations. It's just not regulated as hazardous waste.
And I see Joyce and Theron have questions, and I just want to add in our 2 cents from the solid waste side, because we touch on this in our rules, is that we would encourage whoever's picking up this HHW, even if it's incidental, that they have training. And our rules really are kind of written more for you all doing rovers, right? And bringing it back to your facility. And it does circle back there to saying that staff should be trained in handling the waste. And then again, to just, remind if any of those said haulers are asking, if they're picking up any regulated hazardous waste from a business, they're regulated. And so then they do have to have a haz waste transport permit, and the
Right. And
insurance,
so,
et cetera. Yeah.
so to kind of follow Josh's point there, Mia, well said. And I think, yeah, our hope would be that it is ancillary and that they aren't hhwjunkhaulers.com, right? But they happen to encounter it and haul it, and hopefully they're trained to do it. So really, really good point. Thanks for adding that.
And speaking of, none of them want the HHW. They hate when they come into contact with it, but that doesn't stop them from putting it all in the wrong container and all mixed together. And the amount of times we've sent 1-800-GOT-JUNK away with a cesspool of mixed chemicals and told them how dangerous it was what they brought us because they don't know what they mixed together, and not sent them away after we've taken their stuff. But it's really, we've had to have some pretty serious conversations with them about sort of what they've, and we've drawn up sort of guidelines for them about how to manage their stuff. So it's a good point by Mia that they think just because it's household stuff, it's not going to hurt them. But as we all know, that's not always the case.
Right. The distinction from a regulatory standpoint is just who's the generator. It's not a question of how dangerous, to your point. Right. Totally.
Right.
Joyce?
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a different situation where we're not moving things from a rover collection to a facility, but we're moving what's abandoned and found at our transfer stations to my HHW collection. And that's, within that one day time frame. Are we under the same regs as
It's household hazardous waste. It's abandoned household hazardous waste. You're getting it taken care of. You're bringing it to a collection event. You're getting it cleaned up as soon as possible, right?
Right.
And none of those transfer stations, and you're transporting it in a municipal vehicle, hopefully not your Volvo.
Don't have one anymore.
No,
it's in our district truck.
District truck, yeah. When Corey was just asking about transfer stations up in the NEK also who end up with abandoned household hazardous waste, as too many of your facilities. Same thing, Corey, get it picked up, get it back to your Lindenville facility. There isn't a limit to how much you can be carrying, but the goal is to get it out of that transfer station because they're not permitted to be collecting. And if it starts building up, then folks think, oh, this is the right place to drop it off too, right? And they keep dropping it off. And we did a short flyer on that. I'll put the link in if anyone wants it. Any other, Theron, sorry.
Yes, thanks. My question is more related to facilities. So if we're taking HHW, and I know there's some discussion about generator status. If by taking those materials, we assume generator status and then become by default a small quantity generator, or if we have if we meet that certain threshold, if we then become a large quantity generator. Am I understanding this correctly, that regardless of the volumes that we're seeing through, if it's all household hazardous waste, we're not being subjected to that those additional requirements based on generator status, or am I missing a matching here?
Yeah, Theron, Drew again. What you said there at the end is accurate. So you are responsible for all the waste you take, but from a generator category determination standpoint, you factor in the VSQG hazardous waste that you take, and you're responsible as a generator for that. The HHW, once HHW, always HHW. Obviously, you still manage it responsibly, but it doesn't go into your generator status calculation.
Okay, so the VSQG or SQG, whatever status is based exclusively then on the business has waste that we take in?
As well as any waste that the facility generates just through facility maintenance. But
Right.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I've got to sign off. Thanks, folks.
See you, Theron.
Mia, I'll plug one more time. I'll just throw it in the chat as a link for those maybe that weren't on last quarter's call. Our group and Mia's group in solid waste worked to put together a fact sheet that's just kind of broadly like considerations for managing hazardous waste at solid waste facilities. So I'll throw that in the link, and if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Drew. All right. Oh, I had sent out the 2023 numbers, if you can remember that far back from your collection programs. And Alyssa and I met the other day, and we were wondering if it would be helpful if we offered a Teams training to go over retrack and household hazardous waste reporting. I know there's some new folks who may not have done reporting yet. And was also just to get feedback on numbers. And, we have, what'd you all think? Did you get a chance to look at that? Does it seem reasonable for the estimates that it did on the numbers you gave us? We're just constantly trying to, fine tune that a bit more. The retrack reporting and then what we end up for totals for collection. So if you haven't already, just, take a look at what it says for your region. See if that seems reasonable. And we can plan to have a separate Teams training webinar type thing where we can go through reporting for annual household hazardous waste reports and then quarterly household hazardous waste reports, if that is helpful. Or if that's, frightening and you don't want to do that, we can just make the new people do it. Everyone's pretty quiet because it's getting towards the end of the meeting. The last thing you want to do is talk about retrack. Okay, well, take a look at it. Let me know your thoughts. And I also will be bugging you all for input on the conversions that we're using. Remember we did an overhaul about, I don't know how long, 7-8 years ago of those conversions and looked at what other states were using. And so might want to pick your brains about that too. Make sure they still look good. And Luna is growling, Luna the dog. So she doesn't want to talk about this anymore. Any feedback on that right now? Look for folks. John, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great to have a kind of a review on the retrack. We all kind of forget certain things as
you bet.
we go on. So I'd be all for it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I forget. Every year I have to go back when I look at reports and read what I sent out to you all. So yes. Okay. We'll make one happen. And then the only other thing I just want to mention, we still have the household hazardous waste outreach campaign resources. We're going to do another push of some of those images. Shannon's been doing some stuff or will be doing some stuff on social media around spring cleaning. We're working on a press release, and because I know you want more people to come to your collection events and your facilities, we're going to be putting that out, and those materials are available for you all to use. And I see Shannon came on, so she might want to mention something.
Yeah, I'm going to be sending an email today. We're finalizing our new Vermonter's Guide to Food Scraps and Vermonter's Guide to Household Hazardous Waste, just trying to figure out the color scheme. And so, yeah, be on the lookout in your inboxes for that. Also, some social media graphics for HHW messaging for Front Porch Forum as well. So that'll be arriving today.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Josh,
For April 3rd, I know Mia's going to send an email out, but since I have a captive audience, our facility is going to be open like a normal day. It'll be open in an effort to sort of have it be more of a real life training as far as seeing our facility open and operate and what we do with the material as it comes in. So just throwing that out there because there'll be more traffic than there was last time we all got together at our facility. So if you can ride share as much as possible, we'd carpool as much as possible. We'd appreciate it because we are a little bit limited and we'll be a little bit tight down there. And then just a matter of a heads up that it will be open for business as usual. So just take care when you're coming down into the facility and pay attention. So, but hopefully it'll be a good training for everybody and hope everybody can make it.
thanks again, Josh. Mary?
Well, I remember being disappointed last year at the training because lunch was not provided. So I hope that you're going to fix that problem this year, Josh.
You'll have time when we end at the facility, Mary, until we head over to Williston, if you're interested in going over to U.S. Ecology Republic facility to get lunch. And there's lots of great options in the area, which I'm sure Josh can give us a list.
I'm looking for a free lunch.
I don't
Yeah,
know that
sorry.
I don't know that I love the idea of having a catered lunch at the environmental depot.
Yeah.
Maybe someone can convince me otherwise.
There's no free lunch in hazardous waste.
Great point, John.
And you know the state certainly can't buy lunch. Remember, you had to buy me pens when I started, so. Any other thoughts, folks, want to share? Are you all excited? It's almost spring collection season. Yay. All right.
No.
No. Well, okay. I guess we can sign off. Let's see what's in the chat here. Just JC saying goodbye. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate the time. I hope you have a good sunny day. And we will see, hopefully, all of you in 2 weeks.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, Mia. Bye bye.
Happy spring.